Chapter 340, Past. Aren't you making things difficult for me? Upon hearing Aaron's request, Klein almost drew the crimson moon on his chest, but he ultimately resisted the urge and replied very seriously. Perhaps there's something about my behavior that has led you to misunderstand. But I have to tell you that faith is something that cannot be changed after it's decided upon. Aaron immediately raised his arms and made an apologetic gesture. I'm sorry that I misunderstood your faithfulness. I shouldn't have taken your faith as a joke. All right, our differences in faith do not prevent us from becoming friends. Klein wiped away the fake expression he put on and smiled. That's not true in Fasak and Fainapotter. They can only accept one faith. In comparison, with so many churches coexisting for more than 1,400 years, Lone and Intis are much more open in this respect. Before Aaron could answer, he casually changed the subject. Did you see Will Ossipton again? I'm referring to the kid that had one of his legs amputated, the one who said that your luck would turn for the worse. He was certain that the Nighthawks would follow the clues provided by Aaron, so he wondered what the outcome was. He was curious if the child who changed Aaron's luck still had the tarot card in his possession. No, I haven't seen him since he left the hospital. Aaron shook his head firmly. What a pity. The Nighthawks can find his address according to the hospital's records, and it's not convenient for me to be involved. Of course, the child might have moved away long ago. After a brief exchange with Aaron, Klein decided to head for the underground shooting range, familiarizing himself with his free revolver with ordinary bullets. At this moment, two more acquaintances came in. One was a member of the National Atmospheric Pollution Council, Coim Company shareholder, Ma'am Mary, and the other was Klein's landlord, Stellan Sammer. They were all wearing relatively light skirts, making them look much younger. According to the rules of the club, each member could only bring in one additional person. Therefore, Mary's maid and her bodyguard were left in the reception hall. Klein politely greeted them and praised them out of courtesy. Ladies, you two are as beautiful as ever today, and yet there is a beauty that's different from your usual beauty. Having come into contact with a lot of important figures recently, Mary smiled and said, Roselle said that exercise is a necessity of life, and Stellan is always at home, dealing with trivial matters. Even when she's out, she would be participating in parties and listening to operas. Her health is much worse than it used to be, so I brought her here to play tennis and squash. With her high cheekbones, she looked around and saw a member of the House of Commons and two other members of Parliament of the Greater Backland area. She then turned to Stellan and said, I see someone I know. Excuse me while I head over to greet them. You can wait for me at the library. All right. Compared to Mary, Stellan was clearly much prettier, but towards this lady, she seemed very respectful and docile. After Mary had gone some distance away, she slightly raised her chin, looked at Klein and asked, Mr. Moriarty, you seem very busy these days. Yes, I was working with a lot of detectives to help the police investigate the serial murder case. We made a certain contribution and received quite a sizable reward, Klein answered truthfully. Stellan covered her mouth with her hand. Really? What did the murderer look like? Why did he kill those ladies? The newspapers had been very vague. I'm sorry, I have to comply with the confidentiality clause. Klein deftly made up an excuse. It's not like I can tell you that it had a body of black fur, a smooth, glistening tail, and that it likes to run on all fours. Klein lampooned inwardly. Stellan nodded regretfully, and then she asked curiously, So how much did you get? It was split among quite a number of us. Klein didn't answer directly. Was there 50 pounds? Stellan pressed. Yes, Klein nodded. Honestly, Stellan Sammer smiled. You earn a lot more than I imagined. You really are a capable detective. No, it might take years to come across such a case. Klein smiled and shook his head. No matter what, you have proven your ability. Stellan's eyes looked like they were thinking as she said, Next Sunday, Luke and I will be hosting a party at home. I hope you can come. Sorry. I was very presumptuous. I'll have my maid send the invitation to you. Heh. There will be a lot of unmarried ladies at the party, and their fathers or mothers will have decent jobs, and their families will earn more than 200 pounds a year. Some of them have part-time jobs that they can do at home, such as being a typist. They're all very excellent women. This is a blind date party. Mrs. Stellan has approved of my ability to make money as a detective, so she plans on introducing me to a girl. But in her eyes, am I only fit to be with a woman at that level? Many thoughts flashed through Klein's mind, but after considering the need to maintain their neighborly friendliness and the trouble of preparing his own dinner, he agreed with a smile. If all goes well, I'll be there on time. Stellan smiled and said, then Luke and I will be awaiting your visit. She left without another word and entered the small library of the club, while Klein proceeded to practice his shooting and beyonder powers in the small, enclosed shooting range. At 9 o'clock at night, Klein was sitting at his desk, watching as the crimson moon gradually pierced through the clouds, revealing a full body. The water-like, light red veil slowly spread out, and time passed by the minute. When it was 10:15, he heard illusory pleas that seemed layered. Klein easily guessed that it was from Miss Magician. Closing the curtains, he switched off the lights, took 4 steps counterclockwise, and went above the gray mist. There, he reached out to touch the shrinking and expanding crimson star. In a split second, the hazy figure of Fors appeared on the chair with the symbol of a layered door. She let out a sigh of relief, stood up, and bowed. Honorable Mr. Fool, you have saved me once again. That's not something to worry about, Klein replied in a very light, casual tone. Fors was left speechless and sat down again. She was considering what had just happened, so she didn't say anything. As for Klein, he didn't take the initiative to bring up any subjects in order to maintain his image. Within the towering palace, which looked like a giant's residence, the silence quickly transformed into the main theme. When Fors snapped back to her senses, she suddenly felt that this atmosphere was a little oppressive and uncomfortable. During the gathering, there's still Miss Justice, Mr. World, and company. There was no need to worry about complete silence, but now there's only Mr. Fool and me. What should I do? This pressure is stifling. I need to say something, I have to. I can't just sit here like an idiot. That's Mr. Fool. He certainly wouldn't care about anything, but I'm so nervous and restricted. Fors suddenly felt as though she had found herself alone with her boss when she first entered the workforce. Although Klein wasn't a spectator, he could clearly see Miss Magician's restraint and uneasiness. He smiled and said, maybe you can tell me how you became a Beyonder. For example, how you obtained the apprentice formula and that bracelet. Klein silently added the real question he was trying to get by. Fors relaxed a little and recalled. That was almost 3 years ago. I just graduated from Backland Medical School. With my father's help, I entered a private clinic with pretty good benefits. My father had already settled down in East Balam back then. Ever since the safe sea route to the southern continent was discovered, the outstanding youth of the kingdom started spreading their footprints to every corner of the land. My father, as a low-level military officer, went to East Balam to chase after wealth and power. My mother and I were left behind in Backland to live like widows. It would take months before a distant letter sent by boat would arrive. This situation isn't uncommon in the kingdom. I knew an old gentleman who had 5 children, but they were either in the archipelago, Western Balam, the Paz Valley, or the Hajenti Plains. They have their own career, their own family, and their own wealth, but they've forgotten that there is a father waiting for their return all this time. When I was in grammar school, my mother fell seriously ill. I had no choice but to helplessly watch her die on the hospital bed, and it took my father a month to answer my letter, telling me that he had a new family and a new life in East Balam. He gave me all his property in Backland plus some money. I think he felt a little guilty. As a best-selling novel writer, Fors had mastered the art of rambling. Since Klein had nothing to do, he listened quietly without interrupting. Phew. Fors exhaled and continued. Anyway, my father introduced me to Yosifov Clinic through the Veterans Club. The salary there was really good, and I was doing pretty well, but I was a little anxious about the future. Hence, I worked hard to learn from the senior doctors and worked hard to save money until I met an old lady who came to see me regularly. She was very lonely and childless, and her partner had passed away 10 years ago. I had some sympathy for her, so I often talked to her and accompanied her. Once, I was surprised to find that she was able to walk through walls, which opened a whole new world to me. That old lady said that it was something her husband left her. She vaguely mentioned that as long as one wasn't a member of some family, there was apparently no curse. Not long after, she was so ill that she was on the verge of passing away. She asked me if I wanted to become someone like her. I was very young then, and I still had a lot of fantasies in my head. I agreed without any hesitation. She gave me the formula and told me to watch her body after she died and take away the glowing object that would suddenly appear. And this was the thing she left me, which could be used as the main ingredient of a potion. Also, she gave me this bracelet, telling me not to use it unless I'm in absolute danger. She also told me not to pay too much attention to the ravings during the full moon. Unfortunately, I was ultimately unable to avoid danger. After using it once, the full moon's raving became worse. It seems like that was a widow of a particular Abraham. She had used her own experience to prove that the curse only existed in the bloodline. Klein nodded. Once you become a high-sequence Beyonder, the ravings wouldn't have much of an effect on you. I hope so. Although she didn't believe she could become a high-sequence Beyonder, she believed in Mr. Fool. It was Monday again, and as soon as Klein got up, he went downstairs and saw an open sheet of paper on the coffee table in the living room. Effective. That's good. Klein immediately let out a sigh of relief. At 15 minutes to 3 in the afternoon, he promptly went above the gray fog to prepare for the new Tarot Club gathering.